All right, it's your boy Spank Dog, aka Puffinstein at YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe. BC Spank Dog at Instagram and Puffinstein514 at Twitch. Get into it.
All right, listen up. This may be the most disturbing story that I've read over the past few months, which truly says a lot, but that's because it pertains to our children and what they're being taught in red states in particular.
About anybody that is hurting a child, it's not a good look for you with people that are righteous. But if you are hurting a child mentally, physically, or emotionally, you're a piece of crap.
Us learn that Oklahoma schools are very close to passing a curriculum that has explicit pro-Trump propaganda. I mean, we'll dig into the actual PDF. I downloaded the file so we can go through it and look at exactly what they're trying to teach. But one of the lines says that they have to teach about quote unquote discrepancies in the 2020 election. They also have to teach about Trump's tax code and how amazing of a negotiator.
He's gonna try to make them teach the kids about how he claims the election was rigged, even though he brought his own people to check the accusations, and even they said there was no validity to it. They said the election fraud was false. So you're gonna teach the kids, and I'm talking about these are people who investigated thoroughly. They said there was voter fraud, but you're gonna teach it to the kids, something that's not true.
Trump is, it is some wild, batshit stuff, and we'll break it all down. But just to take a step back, this is the culmination of a decades-long war that Republicans have waged on education in America and the Department of Education. I mean, literally, they're just getting to the point.
They're trying to brainwash America. Trump is really trying to make people think that he's a good guy.
Point where they can defund the Department of Education while simultaneously trying to place pressure on universities like Harvard and Columbia to teach less DEI woke stuff. So they say in one breath that they don't want Democrats to be able to like have their thumb on education, but then Republicans are trying to do exactly that by pressuring universities, banning books, and rewriting curriculum standards. I mean, this literally reads, this new Oklahoma curriculum reads as if Mike Lindell wrote it. It doesn't just like place a little bit of doubt in the legitimacy of election. It encourages students to treat debunked conspiracy theories like it's valid historical analysis. All of this down. Just make sure you drop a like. And I get a lot of comments like, yo, Adam, I've been watching you for a while, but I didn't realize I never even subscribed. I am now voting blue. So let's start here. Judd Legum said, thousands of high school students in Oklahoma will be required to learn about Trump's debunked claim that the 2020 election was tainted by fraud. You know, when they say history is written by the winners, it sounds like a cool phrase, but it actually means this, that oftentimes authoritarian regimes or the winners of wars will rewrite history in their favor. This says, the lesson will not be part of a course on conspiracy theories, but an official component of the new social studies curriculum. And I think it would be an abdication of duty if I didn't download this 200-page document and skip to page, it says 118. On page 118 of this new Oklahoma academic standards for social studies, this is for social studies in particular, it talks about a few presidencies. Now, this is really gonna make you guys mad, but I think it's important we talk about this. So they talk about analyzing significant events during the Obama administration. They talk about the Tea Party as A, and then military engagements, and then Obamacare, and then the Dakota Access Pipeline.
The reason I don't like being labeled is because a lot of reasons. But the other day they were saying that Obama anointed bankers into the administration because he was caring about money like that. Now, this is why I don't like to be labeled, because when a Democratic president does something, it reflects on the Democrats. Now, if I say I'm not a Democrat nor a Republican, I don't look like I vouch for Obama when he anoints bankers into the administration, whether or Congress, House of Representatives. I don't know how it all works 100%, but if Obama really, for the interest of his finances, anointed bankers, that's a no-go, and he's a Democrat. So like I listen, you know, they all do bad, and I'm sure a lot of them do good, you know. And Trump is one of the few presidents that I've seen not even look like he's caring about anything other than himself. Other presidents that I've looked at and said, I don't know about this guy, I've still seen them do good. You know, with Trump, I've yet to see him be able to be proud of anything yet. I'm gonna let Makler talk because, like I said, I don't like interrupting him, but every now and then he'll say something that makes me want to speak on it. So, but let's let this kid, you know, talk his stuff.
Pipeline. And then they start to talk about the Trump and the Biden administration. This is one of the most egregious dereliction of duties I've ever seen on behalf of anybody that touched the social studies curriculum. Okay, so A says explain the effects of Trump tax cuts, child tax credit, border enforcement efforts, including Title 42, consumer and business confidence, interest rates, etc., and inflation rates prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Notice how they talk about Trump's quote unquote booming economy, but under Obama, they don't even talk at all about the recovery from the 2008 crisis or how Obama helped usher in a lot more economic certainty after the.
I mean, that's what I meant too. See, at least Obama has stuff that he could point out that he did positive, even though if it's true that he anointed them bankers, that really pisses me off. You know what I'm saying? Because they're saying that he paved the way for the Trump debacle.
Economy straight up collapsed in 2008. I mean, yes, the economy was far from perfect in 2014, but by all means, in 2014, the economy had recovered in a way that people in 2008 just didn't think would be possible that quickly. So they refused to bring up Obama's economic accomplishments, but then they're more than happy to spend chapters talking about Trump's economic accomplishments. B, describe the effects of replacing NAFTA with the USMCA, which Trump has already replaced again in his second term. 3, identify the source of the COVID-19 pandemic from a Chinese lab and the economic and social effects of state lockdowns. Holy shit. Again, they're treating conspiracy theories like it's valid historical analysis. Now, listen to this.
I don't know if the scuttlebutt about the COVID virus coming from a laboratory in Wuhan is true, you know, and I think that's what Makler's stating, right? Be fair, I didn't go looking to see where the information about the virus coming from a laboratory in Wuhan, I never researched if it was something that had any validity to it, seen if it has been fully debunked. I don't, you know, if the virus came from Wuhan, a laboratory in Wuhan, Makler's saying that they still haven't substantiated, so it's still either not true or it's up in the air.
Identify discrepancies in 2020 election results by looking at graphs and other information, including the sudden halting of ballot counting in cities in key battleground states, the security risks of mail-in ballots, sudden batch dumps, an unforeseen record number of voters, and the unprecedented contradiction of bellwether trends. I think I'm going to go crazy. Throughout the 2024 election, I spent a lot of time debunking all of this. I just had a moment where I realized that over the past 2 years, I have been relentlessly fighting the idea that there was any sort of election fraud that changed the outcome of the 2020 election. But now it's going to be taught in schools. Like high schoolers are going to grow up learning about this, and it's going to.
See, according to Makler, the election fraud he already know has been debunked, and even if the Wuhan thing wasn't debunked, it's still up in the air. It's not something that should be taught to children.
Be something that we have to debunk for decades to come. But just to go through this, that there was sudden halting of ballot counting in selected cities. This never happened. All of these are such lies. There was a video of shifts changing. So for example, there were shift changes between workers who had been working for 10, 12 hours, and people took these videos and said, look it, these pauses are happening behind closed doors so
they tried to say that people were, when the shift change happened, they tried to say that people were passing stuff to each other and stuff like that. And it's so, I've seen the videos. It doesn't look like anything's going on.
They can plant ballots when all of the pauses were entirely transparent, reported in advance, written down, logged. It then talks about graphs and other information. All of these graphs are insanely misleading. Now, let's see how they want to cover the Biden admin. I'm sure it's going to be completely fair, right? They have 2 points for the Biden admin. Remember, for Trump, they had A, B, C, D, and E, all crazy. For Biden, it says, describe the challenges and accomplishments of Biden's admin. A, examine the United States-Mexico border crisis and the effects of his administration's policies. B, describe foreign policies exemplified by the United States' withdrawal from Afghanistan, responses to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the Israel-Hamas conflict. So the 2 things they want to teach about Biden are the fact that there was a border crisis and his pullout of Afghanistan, which is what Republicans widely say was the weakest part of his presidency. I mean, dude, this is actual North Korean propaganda being taught in our schools. Like, for example, this line right here says, the successful avoided.
You know, when we pulled out of Afghanistan, there were children and adults, women chasing after the planes, like, take me with you, don't go. You understand? And we were occupying Afghanistan. You know, to be honest with you, there's certain places where the USA goes, and I do believe that they are helping. You know, I don't even, it's so graphic what happened the day that the planes took off. I don't really want to get into it, but you guys know that people hung on to the wheels all the way till they took off. And you know what happened after that. People were passed away that day. And it was, I didn't even, that's when you know that it's bad where they're at, where they would hold on until they would plunge to their doom.
Of new wars, claiming that Trump successfully avoided new wars. That's just BS. The Russia-Ukraine war was ongoing at the time. There were many wars across the globe going while Trump was in office. None of them were quite as in your face as Israel and Palestine, but Russia was still occupying Crimea. There's no mention of Trump
So true, Makler, so true.
sabotage of pandemic preparedness. There's no analysis of his government shutdown, no mention of the insurrection he incited, just sanitized and glorified bullet points that you'd see in a North Korean textbook about Kim Jong-il. But dude, Trump messed up so much in his first term, not only with the economy, not only with his COVID response, not only with the election fraud lies, and they're just not going to teach any of that. That's why the onus is now on us to push the truth,
Yes.
to teach all of this. If I had it my way, I would sign an executive order saying you could never, ever teach about the 2020 election being stolen unless you're teaching about the effects that lies from authoritarians have on the country. Now, that
You guys gotta support that. This is about our kids learning nonsense. It's about our kids learning lies and then growing up telling these lies like they're truths. You're okay with that? Like, there's so much going on that needs to be fixed. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I never toot my own horn, but people like me, people like Makler, people who really got love in them, who care, you could tell Makler cares, you know, and you could tell I care. You know what I'm saying? I have a severely autistic 14-year-old who doesn't speak, you know. I've been with him every day of his life. The only time I've ever not been with my son is 4 days I spent in. I'm just saying, the only way I was pried from my son was because I had to stay in the hospital or it would have been bad.
would be a much, much different story. I would endorse a course that goes into how the 2020 election was disrupted by a wannabe authoritarian president, and imagine a course that taught the effects of lies.
You know, I gotta shout out a couple of other people too. I definitely gotta shout out the whole Midas Touch Network. Anybody that's down with the Midas Touch Network is doing good things right now. The Young Turks, all I see them preach is about stuff that needs to be addressed. Dr. Rashad Ritchie's Undisputable, which is also part of Indisputable, or, well, whatever. Dr. Rashad Ritchie's show, I watch it a lot. He's another one that's fighting for what's right, but he's part of the Young Turks, I believe. I think he's a separate entity also. And there's more. There's other people. There is a man, and he has an Arabic sounding name, if that's correct. You know, but I wish I knew his name well so I could tell you about him, because he's like Bernie Sanders, like AOC. I gotta shout them out also. You know, people, come on, start using logic, start using your common sense. I don't have any. It's crazy because I've seen people look like they're in love with Trump, and it's not even about whether he's doing the right thing or he's not. They're fans, like stands, like fanboys. Meanwhile, you're not using your logic or your common sense to make your decisions. Things that are untrue. All right. I'll leave it on that note. Much love to everybody out there. All right. Holla at you guys later.